Hi everyone, we are back with Lamont Jack Pearley, and we have just played some Friday Night Funkin'. But I really want to stress this again. You're our first like folk music scholar. This is like our first music night on the stream, which I am really excited about. Because I come from I dabble in music a little bit, as all of you know. But not like you, which is a big academic interest and a uh, you're a performer as well. So you ready to get in? I've got some interview questions for you. If you're ready to get into them real quick.
Well, after such an introduction for the second time, hold on.
Oh please. Okay. Ooh. I need
I,
water.
Oh
I
yes,
had,
I know we all
yeah,
need to let's be thirsty
I'm
back
drinking
here.
water, trying to calm down. But
Did
because
I
let's.
just hear you? Did you just say you were drinking water,
Yeah,
Mister
Daisy. Yeah, Daisy.
Anti-Water?
That's how bad this is. I'm drinking water. That's how bad
Dom
this
is
is.
Dom is usually anti-water. Must have something in it.
Yeah, no, that's
Can't be pure
at
water. Has
least
to be.
he. At least he. No, that's how bad this is. I've
Wow.
I've gone down to your level and I'm hydrating. Um so if thank you once again, like I do every week, to the intrepid Folkwise interview sleuths. If you hear a question that makes you laugh, or say that's a good question, you are not thanking me. You're thanking our sleuth team that helps me put together the questions. But like I said, I want to go broad at first, and I do want to talk about folk music a little bit. So your main uh the main genre you both perform in and work in is the blues, correct? So
correct, by way of hip hop.
by way of hip hop. Oh, okay. So uh let's get to these first two questions. All right. So can you describe kind of in general, for the audience, for people in the audience who might not know what your definition of folk music is, and like can you talk about how like the blues is a form of folk music, for example?
Sure. Um, to be as simple as possible, folk music is the music of the folk,
Mm-hmm.
by the folk, for the folk, about the folk, representation of the folk, right?
Mm-hmm.
Um, so it's organic in that way, right? Blues is black folk music, to be quite honest, as is hip hop, as is ragtime, as is uh, what's become known as the songster, black spirituals, work songs. We can go down the list
Mm-hmm.
because these are songs of the people that, in some moments, have no rhyme or reason. In other moments, words can change, and it is very, as we used to say, um from the, what was the term that my brother and I used to say, from from the page, was it from the concrete to the page, something like this. But it's just pretty much the lived experience transmitted from the people. And that's what the blues is. I mean, and we're not talking necessarily commercial music, which is nothing wrong with. And when I say commercial music, I have to go on a tangent a bit, which I tend to
Go for it.
do.
Go for it.
There's this misnomer. There's several tiers of performers and performances, and I'm speaking well, this can kind of be generalized into any traditional music, right? You have those who work to be professional performers, put out records, tour, and do this as a business. They are more polished in some sense. Their songs that they perform are more polished. It has a pattern, right? In rap, it's 3/16s and two choruses. In blues, you're probably looking at about a 2.5, 3 minute song, sometimes 4 minutes. when we're speaking of these songs as a representation of the folk, it is not about a package. It is definitely about representation. It is definitely about tradition.
Mhm.
It is definitely it's celebratory in some senses, right? And not in all. So we these are literally hand down um, stanzas to a degree, if that makes any sense.
Yeah. So this
I hope I answered your question.
I think you did, and I think you set me up perfectly for the next thing I wanted to ask. Um,
Okay.
I've heard you say that hip hop is the great grandchild of the blues. Can you explain what that means?
Absolutely. I'm so happy you asked that. And it's ironic because I recently interviewed Eric Gales, and I was editing it earlier today, and that crossed my mind because he is a perfect representation of that visually, if nothing else. Not necessarily the music, but his how he wears his clothes, the jewelry,
Mm.
right? I say great grandchild, and sometimes great grandchild too, sometimes three,
Okay.
because I equate it to my generation in comparison to my grandfather, who comes out of Mississippi's generation,
Hmm.
who him and his friends knew some of these guys, and that it was the generation prior to his that kind of made this popular. That's one. Two, because it is the same expression, just done in a different ways, almost, right?
Hmm.
Both is rhythmatic, both are the results of lack of resources, both have no real European or non-black. Well, you could say there's a little bit of Latin in both, right?
Hmm.
But
Hmm.
for hip hop, there's more Latin in hip hop than the blues, a little bit. But outside of that, there's no real. The only European or non-black, or for that matter, non-Latino, um, inspiration to it or resource to it is the lack of resource, or
Mm.
the oppression, or the different treatments that kind of culminated these expressions, right? Blues is a freed black person's music. It is not a slave
Mm.
music. It is a response to something. It is a response to the terrain. Hip hop is a freed black person slash Latino person music. And I would say some people might get upset, but there were Jewish males and females part of the culture,
Hmm.
still to this day, right? But these things started from lack of resource, or the response to societal shifts. The expression morphed, right?
Yeah.
Because right, so the voice is the original instrument, right? So that's what we get the feel hollows, the singing. We get the blues when we get these instruments in some cases, right? Because in some cases it wasn't just the guitar, right? There was horns and different things. Because in New Orleans, they was playing blues. They didn't call it jazz. Jazz became the name because of a popular band.
Hmm.
When hip hop, the term and the music, which was already being played, became a thing or popularized, it was during a time of lack of resources yet again. So we have these two black musics that was birthed out of a societal shift in a response to something. And it was the great grandchildren, the great grandchildren of those who lived the blues. When we're talking prior, not necessarily, but prior to the Great Migration as documented,
Hmm.
right? Because they say that the first migration was in like 1913, 1914. That's not necessarily true, right? We have some in the late 1880s, we have some in the 1840s, et cetera, et cetera. But to that story of that particular migration, the blues took place prior. So that's why I say great, great, great.
Yeah.
Did I explain that?
Yeah. Oh,
Did it, was,
that was a wonderful answer. I love that answer.
I just wanted to pop in and say that the chat is popping off right now, and not only am I collecting a couple questions for you, but I did want to just note really quick that Suburban Chick said diamonds are good music. Diamonds and good music both get formed under pressure, right? Which I think is a lot about what you're kind of describing. And then Benton's Dream, who we can tell you who that person is off off Twitch, but says yes, this is exactly what I was talking about in my defense, because people think old time music doesn't feature the voice and blah 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 blah. And so we have some connections that you made there, and I'll save the other questions from the chat for later. But this is everybody's like focusing very intently on this wonderful interview.
Yeah.
So know that you're very loved right now in the chat.
well, I hope that doesn't change.
Well, let's see. The next question
Next
I
question,
have.
right?
Next question I have. How is the blues inherently spiritual?
Great, great question, because this is convoluted, right?
Mhm.
Because so we could break it down like this. Just technically, let's just talk about technical music. It is the exact same thing as black spirituals and gospel, right? Particularly gospel when there's instrumentation behind it, right?
Mm-hmm.
So now there's a couple of things that we have to look at. We have to look at class, the class divide, and we also have to look at spiritual belief.
Mm-hmm.
We also have to look at the venues the music was being performed and the lifestyles that was perpetuated in these musics and in these particular venues. So blues is spiritual, at least for me and to me, and I can speak for some of us, and some of us that are blues people that play it, or not purists, but those that play it. It is a spiritual connection, because what ultimately happens for me when playing the blues is I'm personally talking to what I call the Most High, which is what God, or however some refer to him, if you believe, about worldly issues, right?
Mm-hmm.
Where the spiritual and the gospel are praise. So the blues is not necessarily a praise. That's why it's more secular, right? Now, there's another spiritual component to the blues, and it's just so ironic. I have these books here.
Looking like a true academic. Oh my gosh.
Daisy, get ready to post them in chat too.
I got a Mojo working. We have Root Workers and Hoodoo.
Mm-hmm.
We have Black Magic, right? So when you think about those titles, when you think about that sort of spirituality, that also, as well as Christianity, is a humongous proponent to traditional Black country Southern life.
Yeah.
And if you listen to blues music, the lyrics, it is throughout from the before the turn of the century all the way to Muddy Waters, when he's saying I'm going back to Louisiana to get me a mojo because I got to get this woman.
Mm-hmm.
So there is a multiple spiritual entities suggested in the blues, right?
Yeah.
Now I'm not talking commercially. And when I say commercially, the PR of people. Robert Johnson went down and he sold his soul to the devil, and but Tommy Johnson did it first, right? And then we have a whole slew of people who allegedly did this. I'm not saying they didn't, and it's also what you think the devil is, because in Orisha, if I'm not mistaken, I believe that's the term.
Mm-hmm.
What is constituted as that devil at the crossroads is not necessarily a devil. It's a one of the multiple gods, and it's a god that's a trickster. So he has you do certain things to get what you want, but he's a trickster, kind of like Logi,
Mm-hmm.
right? So there's just multiple spirituality beliefs that comes out of this region, that comes out of this culture, and that comes out of the people, right? Because now we're also dealing with a small percentage of Africans and a larger percentage of indigenous to America, and both of these groups had particular spiritual beliefs. This is all in the music. This is all in the lifestyle, right?
Mm-hmm.
Am I missing something? I
Ben's
don't know.
dream.
I'll stop there.
Ben's dream
It's good.
was Ben's dream asks, "Is this Anansi?" Like ties into this Anansi.
Exactly. Yeah,
Yeah.
I know exactly what, because and it's ironic again, because I was just talking to my family, my wife and children, about American Gods, the television show. I didn't get a
Yeah.
chance to
Yeah.
finish it. And Anansi, it looks like he's getting his own show,
Oh, good.
right?
Yeah.
Because they're according to the I can't think of his name, who played this
Is
character.
that Orlando Jones?
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
Orlando Jones. He was saying that that character gave too much of a strong representation for it to continue on the show. I stopped the series, not intentionally, but just because life, work, school
Yep.
happened.
Yep.
But I was watching it late, and I had to stop it right at his introduction. So I can't fully make a comment on that. But yes, he would fit into that because he is of Black spirituality, African spirituality, as some call it. Some call it Native. It's just a whole slew of things because we're
Mhm.
all like a melting pot.
I love when this happens, Daisy, with guests. But I'm about to strike the Robert Johnson versus Tommy Johnson question because you got to that already. we had one written about that, but kudos to you for getting to that organically. I will have a next question, which is how has your work as a folklorist allowed you connect to your own family folklore, past and present, past, present, and future?
Now you're talking about how I even got to the space.
A little bit.
Right? Because I didn't even realize I was a folklorist initially. This is by default,
Mm-hmm.
right? So I'm a child of the Great Migration. My pops passed in 2004, and shortly after, my granddad passed, my mother's father. So we went to Louisiana. My dad was born in New Orleans, and he died there. He loved going back. And I mean, it's a beautiful place. I enjoy seeing it. So we went down there, and I'm getting somewhere here. So don't. I'm just taking you around the corner, but I'm getting somewhere.
Mm-hmm.
We go down there, and we go to Harvey, and we go to New Orleans, and we drive out in the country in Belrose, Louisiana. This is where all the Pearleys is from.
Okay.
Right, my dad's family, and it's I feel confident enough to say Belrose is 95% Pearly. Okay. So there's this big church on a dirt road. Across the street is a shotgun house where we had a repast. Right next to this church is a Pearly burial ground. It took us a long time to get out there. So me and my brother and our family, we're sitting in this repast. my brother and I are surprised that we have, because we didn't know we had a burial ground for just Pearlies.
Mm-hmm.
And he's talking about that, but I'm bugging out because I'm in the shotgun house on the dirt road and there's blues playing in the back, and not like B.B. King blues, but like traditional country blues.
Yeah.
Now, my granddaddy, my father's father, he put out gospel records. Maybe I have it glued to my wall, so I can't show you. But he put out gospel records. He had these different programs for low income kids around the South that he would take them on tour. So he used to drive us to B.B. King's house in New Orleans. So that wasn't a surprise, but it was to hear the traditional blues like the Sun Houses and the Etta Bakers and the people like this that just played acoustic.
Yeah.
And black spirituals and all this kind of stuff. So I come back to New York. Mind you, I'm at the cusp of this 2004. So I'm at the cusp of not rapping anymore because I just didn't have that fire burning. I did some songs that was really good, but the fire wasn't burning. So I'm like stuck, and I'm just like, wow, I just don't. It was a real spiritual moment, and it felt like ancestors was talking to me. So I start asking questions. Now I knew some of these things, but I never put them together. So I'm talking, rest in peace. I was talking to my mother, my uncles, different people. And that's when I realized that I was a child of the Great Migration, because my mother's family went from Mississippi to Chicago to New York, and my father's family went from Louisiana to New York. And mind you, they're 3 or 4 generations, or possibly more, they were just separated by a stream between Amorite, Natchez area of Mississippi, and Gonzales and Belrose, Louisiana. So I'm bugging. I'm putting all these things together, and I'm listening to blues, I'm listening to black spirituals, not for nothing else other than I couldn't listen to nothing else. And everything just kind of hit me at one time. I was like, wait a minute. And so while I'm going through this moment, my grandfather passes, my mother's father. So he was a war veteran. So he was buried in a veteran's spot in Washington. So everybody from Mississippi came, and I had the same experience. So now I'm thinking I'm going crazy here. So I just come, and so when I get back, and at this one, my wife came. She was pregnant with our youngest son, and we were shooting a short film, but I was slightly distracted because of all this stuff that was happening. So I began seeking people to see if they had the same experience. I will have to say initially, I found no black people that had this connection to the blues. I found a lot of white blues musicians that revered and understood the story. And what's more, they were so happy that someone that was birthed of the music was interested. But I couldn't find them. So I just kept looking and I kept looking. And then I ended up finding people that shared these stories. And I ended up finding people who were playing. I didn't even realize the amount of people that were actually playing that had the same story. So I bought a banjo. Then I bought a guitar. Now I have like 6, 7 guitars. I'm not the best, but so what ends up, so what I say all this to say, it wasn't folklore that had me look back into my family. It was my family brought me into folklore. So some years later, and I can get to that other part later, but I'll tell you this much.
Okay.
There was one day I was sitting at my workstation, and my wife walks over to me and she said, babe, what's that old white guy who likes to go around the South and film those old black guys? I said, Lomax? She said, yeah. She said, that's what you do. That's what you are. And I said, oh shit. And that's how I found out that I was a folklorist.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh my God. Oh my gosh. Wow, what a powerful story.
Yeah, it was incredible.
This is incredible because it's also coincidental that our question this week from last Friday, we ask a question every Friday on our Instagram if anybody follows us there. Was like,
I
how
follow
did you
you.
Yeah, you follow us for sure. And the question was like, how did you find yourself like getting into folklore? Like, what's your story of becoming a folklorist or like getting interested in things? So that's amazing.
Yeah, you
What a cool story.
you have a
Thank
road
you.
to
Yeah, I didn't
you have
know
like
it
a
was a
Wow.
real
thing.
road to Damascus story. Yeah,
Yeah, that's
Yes,
awesome.
I was blinded for some time.
yeah.
Yeah.
So and I have a follow up to that if I'm not stepping on Luomi's toes a little too much, but
I've been collecting the questions.
okay. Actually,
If
ask Luomi's question now because it's kind of the follow up
Alright.
I wanted to ask.
Alright, so Luomi says a question for whenever. Are you trying to get your kids interested in playing blues or other genres of music, and how are you going about it?
I love these questions. Um, Again, by default, I didn't realize we was doing ethnography, ethnomusicology, or folklore.
Mm-hmm.
We would just sit in the house, and this is before any of this happening. Just when we sit in the house, and we would just go through YouTube, finding old songs and singing it. And I'm a big PBS buff, thanks to my mother. So when these old the concerts that would come on, we would watch that.
Yeah.
I don't know if you guys see those infomercials where they're trying to sell the oldies.
Yes.
Yeah, we would watch that for hours just to hear the song.
Just to hear like the 30-second clips. Yeah.
Yeah, and we're
I
singing
get
it.
it, I get it.
Right, and then the kids were like, "Oh," so we went. So my baby girl fell in love with the sound of Howlin' Wolf. Her favorite song was
Ooh.
Smokestack Lightning.
Ooh. I keep saying
Ooh.
ooh, but maybe it's more oh.
So when my son fell in love with the harmonica at one time,
Mm-hmm.
and he would go to his second grade class and get busy.
Cool.
So we didn't want to push it on them, but they were taking music lessons. So now that they're a little older, I've been trying to push it on them. My son is into sports and gaming.
Mm-hmm.
He's watching us now. But my baby girl has always been into music, theater, and believe it or not, sketches.
Oh, okay.
Like comedy
Nice.
sketches.
Oh, nice. That's
So-
nice.
Nice.
So she's been asking, she wants to put a band together. And I'm like, and in my mind, we're going to be like the next Staples, and I'm
Mhm.
Papa Staples and all this. But that's not what's in her mind. She asked me for a guitar. And I was like, what have you been watching that you even know what this thing is?
That's awesome.
Valid?
So she's into punk rock a little bit, like pop punk, and I was like,
Yeah.
so, baby, daddy is the blues. You should be doing the blues. And she looked at me with such a serious face and said, Daddy, all music come from the blues. We're just doing our own version. So to answer your question, I would love for them to play the blues, the black spirituals, or anything in ragtime, anything in that space. But the way the spirit moves them to express, I can't control that.
Sure. It's great.
I hope I answered your question.
You answered it perfectly. Yeah. I mean, it was
long-winded.
Yeah, Luomi, tell me if he gets a seal of approval for that one in chat.
Yeah.
I say so.
Mhm.
So and I guess one more question I have, is just that you mentioned that you follow us.
Absolutely.
Folkwise follows the African American Folklorist, and you're so prolific across so many different kinds of social media and just like media as well. I'm also trying to plug right now the Traditional Folklore in a Digital World Symposium that at the Smithsonian that's going to be hosted online that you're going to be a part of. But
Wow, yes.
I guess what the question I'm asking is, how do you or what do you see as like your goal in using multimedia platforms to teach people about the arts and humanities?
Mm. Well, you know, again, initially it was by default, right? Because coming out of film school, thinking I was going to be the next Alfred Hitchcock, and then
Mhm.
reality hits, and you got to work. So
Yeah.
I worked in multimedia and broadcast. So, but I have this entrepreneurial spirit, so I was just
Mhm.
always creating, podcasts and all kinds of stuff. So by the time I got to this space, I had some years of experience. So I just figured it was just the best way to get the message out, to reconnect, because the goal initially was to reconnect
Yeah.
my people to their story,
Yeah.
right? Um, I, the story I told you I was going to save for later. Um, there was so I was on Facebook one day. Just I watch a lot of movies. And we literally analyze it to the point some people don't like watching movies with us because we're analyzing
Oh,
while
that's
we're
me.
watching.
That's
Oh, good,
same.
good. So you're always welcome to watch with us, right?
Oh my god, I would love it. I would like talk through half the movie trying to figure out what happens. So instead, we could just watch
Yes,
them. We could just watch the movie and find out what happens. But yeah,
yes,
I
Oh my
would yes.
gosh.
Let's watch some movies.
yes. So I come across an article about black exploitation, about films, about women in films, and all these other kind of things. And it was just a very narrow view. I don't even remember what the dude was saying. I remember my response. I was actually livid because the
Mm.
first thing that I thought was about. I don't know how many of you know who Cleopatra Jones is.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Right. So her character kind of debunks everything he was saying because we're talking
Yeah.
about a 6 foot dark skinned woman with an afro, and not a big exploited afro, but just a nice little natural hair that drives a stick shift. That during the era of extreme fast car testosterone, it was unheard. It was kind of unheard of a woman driving a stick shift in the movie at this time.
Mm-hmm.
This was like the tail end of the Steve McQueen. This is after The Graduate, because The Graduate kind of changed the Graduate's. My perspective, its purpose was to change the trajectory of how culture was going, right?
Yeah.
But at that time, culture was it was you know, men drive stick shifts. Men, they jump out the car, they smack you up, they get the woman and all this kind of stuff. And here we have the 6 foot woman, and she comes from a group of people that is at the bottom of the totem pole, and she has a hairstyle that is not necessarily appreciated, respected, or even accepted, and she's driving a stick shift. And she's in control of her agency. So I just got upset and just started throwing every socially driven black movie on Facebook. And then comes Macklemore. And
Mm-hmm.
my timeline in my age group, which give or take 5 years younger, 5 years older, they will live it. They will live, and my I understand, right? So I'm not saying that the premise was wrong. What I'm saying is, just like the blues, we released it and let it go, right?
Mm.
So I got, again, livid, and I was like, there's a lot of black leaders. I don't like to use that term, but their claim to fame was we was robbed of our land, which is true. We was robbed of our name. I don't know. We was robbed of our culture, history, and tradition. That's not true. The blues tells you our history and tradition. Black spirituals tell you our history and tradition. Matter of fact, there's another book. Do I have it here? I hope I have this book right here.
I hope you do too.
It'll be awesome.
Oh, here it is.
Ah,
Did you guys know this book? A Sound
history.
History, right? Stephen Garibidian. I always mess up his name. Stephen, if you're watching, forgive me. I met you. We spoke. We like each other. Please forgive me.
Okay.
It's about Lawrence Gillard, right? I know you guys are familiar with Lawrence Gillard.
I don't think so.
Okay, so Lawrence Gillard hated folklorists.
Oh.
He was a folklorist. He was a collector.
Mm.
He worked with Sterling Brown. He was a Jewish Hungarian man. I think he grew up in the Bronx.
Okay.
And then he moved to the South. But he did work with a lot of people, and he was able to cultivate relationships in these black spaces, which he was ridiculed for. Right? They said he was slumming. What ends up happening is he begins collecting what is considered protest songs by black people. So it's not the average, oh, woe was me, Lord, help me. You know, it wasn't your average, the type of songs that collectors like to collect at that time.
Yeah.
Right? What's considered primitive. He's collecting songs that has strong language. He's collecting songs that is anti-government, anti-establishment, anti-oppression, and it's similar to 90s rap, but it's just like blues and folk.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They begin to say that he made it all up, that he was lying and he just made this up, because obviously a black person would not write this or could not write this, right? So I say all of this to say I was getting really upset that we didn't have no history, that we didn't have that people were saying this. So I was determined to utilize whatever platform available to me to explain that is not true. That is not just white people, black folk. I love you, but you turning your back on something that belongs to you because you just don't know. So I'm here to tell you. I'm here to reintroduce you. And ironically, people in my age group started reaching out to me that I grew up with. Like, yo, I never thought I'd be listening to no blues, man. Could you give me my starter blues kit? And you know, and then
You did it.
people were putting So now they were putting two and two together, and then I was able to meet some great people: Corey Harris, Marquise Knox, John Tavius Willis, Ben and Valerie Turner, who is a Piedmont acoustic blues duo, Veronica Jackson, a whole bunch of people, Dom Flemings, a whole bunch of people of color, Leah Gilmore, that dedicated their life to presenting this music, singing this music, and putting it, like myself, in a proper context. So the whole goal was to bridge the gap. And that's why I utilize any and every avenue afforded to me. I'm sorry, I go on tangents, but I hope that
was so good. I was like,
Yeah.
chat loved it. I was like, I was literally cheering by the end of it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Chat is loving all of your shout outs too. Benton's Dream specifically is very into old time music and is loving all of your name shout outs too. So yeah, I've been trying to post all the books that you're recommending in the chat so that people know at least what the title and the author is, because these are important books to add to our reading list. So
Can I ask you a few fun questions really quickly before we get into our last segment here?
absolutely.
Cool. Okay, so some fun questions real quick. One, what is it about Son House's grinning in your face that makes you want to play it first at all your sets?
Well, you guys looked me up.
Thank you, Sleuths.
Son House is dear to my heart because he is the epitome of the blues. He is the epitome of the blues and black spirituals. He's the epitome of inner struggles. He was a pastor who played the blues, who understood the two ain't supposed to mix. Son House reminds me of my granddaddy. He comes from the same place as my family, and his story similar to my grandparents on both sides. You know, one of the stories I tell after I perform the song is that in 1965, the revivalists and enthusiasts were telling him how old he was, and when he was born, and he was explaining to them, "Nah, I was born at this time," and they, "Oh
Mhm.
yeah, yeah, you know,
Mhm.
you were born." So what happens is he probably was at least in his hundreds when he died in I think '88. We found out my grandparents' age, and it wasn't the age that we thought it was all them years. You know, my grandfather got mad at my mother, my mother, my uncle, and my aunt. He was because he actually wasn't 82; he was 88.
Sure.
Right? So that's close to me. There's a connection. His attack on the music and my personal journey with that inner turmoil of what some would say God and the devil, good and evil, yin and yang, and how he gives off the blues is why I always do that, because that's how I always attacked my music.
Yeah. Great answer. Great answer. You've next one. You've lived in Kentucky for about a year now.
Literally a year.
Literally a
and
year.
maybe a few
Literally a
days,
year.
yeah.
Okay, so after literally a year, what's the thing you miss about Brooklyn the most?
Oh boy, my mother, she passed.
Oh,
um, I love New York. I really and truly love Brooklyn so much because it's so much of who I am, and it's so much of why, outside of the Most High God, I can maneuver the
yeah.
way I know how to maneuver. Um, but I don't. You know what? I miss being able to go downstairs and then and my brother or brothers and cousins, depending if it's just all of us or just me and my brother, because there's a lot of us, and
Mhm.
there's any neighborhood in Brooklyn we can go to and just rap and drink beers. That
Yeah.
I miss that.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I miss my fellas, you know,
Mm.
and spending that kind of time. And when I say rap, I mean literally, we was standing out there rapping.
Yeah. And last fun one I've got. Why should everyone who loves folklore stop what they're doing and watch Lovecraft Country right now?
Ooh, that goes back to this.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. To black magic.
Yeah, it is. I mean, it is if you love folklore, if you love sci-fi, and if you understand that there's a mixture with all of these things, from the church to black magic to the devil to space to the black planet of, was it Nebaru?
Mm.
And then all these things, right, culminate on this planet in this dimension, and we all have these multiple dimensional experiences. You need to watch it.
Yeah, yeah. Daisy, think we're ready for the I know he's got a lot of questions. You think we should go right into
I know. I'm trying
the
to
activity right
decide.
now, or field some
There's
questions?
more questions.
Oh
Oh,
my
the
God, the
chat has
chat
so many
is-
questions for you.
Yeah, I wanted to give you a chat update. First of all, the chat is like absolutely going wild right now for your interview.
Wow.
And they've sent in a lot of awesome questions that are really cool and could probably take us on more tangents. So you get to decide. Do we play a fun game and take a break from questions, or do we just do all the chat questions and then play a fun game and then you're out of here? What do you think?
I think we should ask all the questions, because if we stop right now, I'm gonna go eat because
Okay.
I haven't
Alright.
eaten yet.
Okay, you don't mind staying a little past 11 or 10 for you?
Sure.
Okay.
Sure.
Just a little bit. Okay.
That's fine.
Hit it, Daisy.
Some of the questions, one of the questions, probably, here's a quick one. Have you seen the documentary Cowtown Ballroom, Sweet Jesus? By BB King played there a lot, and my mother, Flexitron 93's mother, who asked the question, contributed to a lot of the photographs used in the documentary.
Oh wow!
Have you?
I think I did see it. I really believe I did see it, and I believe I own it. But
Nice.
I will say, congratulations. That's a good feat. I'm happy
Yeah.
that you contributed to that history.
Very cool. Another one from Flexitron 93. He wants to know what your reaction is to a term that's often referred to as dirty white boy blues and how that has affected blues culture, if you've heard this term before.
That's a new one for me. Dirty white boy
Yeah, and he puts it in
blues.
quotes too, as like a
I
saying that somebody has suggested.
yeah. Can you Flexitron? Can you elaborate on that?
I need some
Yeah,
context on that
that's
one.
yeah.
We'll circle back. We'll circle back and see if Flexitron has an explanation for that.
Sure.
Um, Suburban Chicks asks, how does Lamont recommend connecting with music when you've been so far away from it? I don't know if this is something you've experienced, but a lot of my friends played music growing up and think they can't do it anymore as adults.
Um, I'm here to tell you that you can. Yeah, you
There you
can.
go.
You know, I mean, here's the thing, and I have this conversation with good associates that I went to high school with that we reconnected from every so often. Um, you can just pick up the instrument. It just really depends on what your purpose is and what your goal is. Like right, I really thought that I would spend most of my summer just producing segments for the NPR
Hmm.
and playing music and even recording some music and sharing it with the world, but that did not happen because work and life got in the way. But I still make time to play. So it's like, do you want to just play for yourself? Then you just pick it up whenever you have 10 minutes, you know? If you want to perform, I'll tell you what this lady told me when I used to work the door at a speakeasy, like a real speakeasy in West Village. It's
Hmm.
called Little Branch. And this woman walks up to me and said, she was an older lady, and said, "You look like a bluesman." I said, "Well, I am." She said, "Well, you play out?" I said, "I haven't played out yet." She said, "Well, all you need is 3 songs to get started, and then you could just ride that until
Hmm.
and that's how I started. So it just
Awesome.
depends on what you want to do, but
Yeah.
you can do it and do it. Pick it up, pick it up.
That's like similar to advice I've gotten about drawing, like
Mm.
doing art. Is like just do it for just do a piece once a
Yes,
day. Just do one song. But if you do
yes.
it every day, yeah, yeah,
Because
awesome.
sometimes we use sometimes it's not. There's certain gifts that we have that is not necessarily is not necessarily meant for everybody. It just could be something for your sanity.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah.
I got two quick questions. One, I'm going to say Luomi asked two questions. And the first one Luomi asked was, are you able to perform something short for us? No pressure.
Are you
I'm sorry,
mic'd for sound? Are you mic'd for sound? Appropriately for
folks.
that.
I I, I would have to be in a different setup.
Well,
Yeah.
and so my suggestion is, why don't we save that for our eventual music thing that we kind of want to do on this show,
Yeah. Yeah.
and we'll
Yeah.
just we'll invite you back on for round 2 to actually play some music with us because we're working on something.
Okay.
Oh,
And
Flexitron's back with a follow up.
Flexitron, let's see what your follow up
Dirty
is
White
here.
Boy Blues. He means Jimmy Rogers and his contemporaries. So that would be like that first generation of country guys.
Um. All right. So there's a couple of things. First, and this is the yodeler, if I'm not mistaken. Howlin' Wolf credits him a
Mm.
lot, so there's not much I can say about him. About my I would say I can't even think of the name of these people, so I'm not gonna say that. But I think I would like to know why it's called Dirty White Boy Blues. That's I'm gonna answer your question with another question.
Okay.
Why is it called Dirty White Boy Blues? I think that's what's concerning me.
Well, yeah, I know. I'm curious, like who said that and in what context. You know, folklorists love
Right,
context.
right.
Exactly.
We love our context. Yeah, interesting. Well, so Luomi's other question, which is they say quick question: biggest challenge to blues music today. What is it?
Quick question?
That's what they said. Quick question: biggest challenge to
question?
blues music today. Okay.
No, that is kind of quick, and I can
okay.
answer that. I can
Okay.
answer that very quickly. That no one is keeping it alive because there are a multitude of black folks still playing the blues. So the biggest discrepancy in the music is that it has been removed from the people it came from, and that's not a fact. I think the second biggest, if not the first, is that those that are of it does not receive the same airplay, professional opportunities, and money and stages in festivals. So that's pretty quick, yeah.
Yeah, it was. And
Yeah,
quick
that's
and,
pretty good.
and succinct. Yeah, precise. Precise, really.
Awesome. I have some questions that were sent in as well. From T Papas, who I haven't seen today, was one of our biggest fans. I haven't seen him in the chat, but
Yeah.
he's gonna be around. Yeah, one of our biggest fans, a big subscriber. He says he has a little trouble framing this question, but maybe I can help him. Under this like broad umbrella of hip hop music and the like regional take that hip hop has with cities, like did that happen with blues? that's my question.
Yes.
Rephrase is like, tell us about the regional differences with cities and blues. They just want to hear a little bit more about those kind of differences.
Good question,
Yes.
Tommy. Yeah.
Great question. And another reason why hip hop is the great grandchild of the blues, because there is
that makes sense.
regional differences.
That makes sense.
Right?
Yeah.
So when you're hearing Piedmont blues, most people equate that as being a style, but it's the region that played this particular music. Because now, if you listen to Mississippi John Hurt, who is from Mississippi, right? And if you listen to Piedmont blues, which constitutes the region of the Piedmont, is very similar, isn't it? It's not the same thing. Finger picking in a particular way.
Yeah.
Right? So he was playing a regional style. We also have to keep in mind, in a lot of these spaces, we have moments where people from other places were coming to work, right? Or if they weren't coming to work, they was coming to settle, right? So you have let's talk about Mississippi after, because the 1799 and prior, this is Indian territory, right? 1802, 1807, it becomes Mississippi, if my memory serves me correctly. I'm 4 sips into my whiskey, so bear with me.
Okay.
Then we go into the 1820s or so, during the land speculation, where it starts to really become Mississippi. Land speculation plays a big part in this, right?
Yeah.
Because remember, the Delta region, the lower part of America, was Indian territory. So when we're talking about 1820s to the Civil War, possibly, we have what's called land speculation, where the northern bankers and what's become known as the southern plantation owners, southern mostly in South Carolina, Virginia, Maryland, like this, they're going deeper into and over the Appalachia. I think I said it right this time. And they're going deeper into Mississippi and Florida and all these places to make slave states. What do you need to make slave states? You need unique people. So then this is where the Coffle Gang comes in. The Coffle Gang is when you had what's known as a Georgia man. He was the rough tumble white man that was of low to no income, but he had the balls to snatch people up, and march them across the country, right? So they're going to different places, they're marching them through, and then these prisoners are being sent to these slave states, and music cultivates. So there is and then as a matter of fact, I got another book.
I love all these books. This is so awesome. They're all like right there.
Here it is. The Half Has Never Been Told, right? That talks about the diluting of international slave trade to the domestic slave trade, and how people are being moved around the country, around the Americas. And it documents how there's people hearing songs in one region, and then when they travel to another one, they're hearing the same song or the same style of song, because these people were being brought from one place to another. So it is regional to a degree in that aspect. I'll also say this to wrap it up, because I can go on a long tangent about this. Why I dislike the term obscure and primitive, because we're talking about musicians that was innovative enough that when they went to different locations, if this particular location was ragtime was popular, they would go to that location and their name is Ragtime Johnny. Then if they go to another location and the songster was popular, then their name would be Johnny the Songster, and so on and so forth. So we have these people traveling, playing the same music that they always play, that's been in some cases passed down for multiple generations, that are giving themselves monikers of the region so that they can get work. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that's so fascinating.
Not to mention New Orleans, because New Orleans, if anything, would be the ground zero of the blues. But we could talk about that another time.
And we would love to. This is amazing. But for the sake of time, the chat has thrown a couple other questions in there, but I might just email them to you if you're interested in ever answering them, because we, I think, have a fun game for us to play together that should hopefully be really cool. And I can't hear Dom. Don't know where Dom went.
I muted myself because I was drinking water or something. I'm back. Okay.
Okay, I just wanted to make sure
that's
that you were still there.
For the VOD. That's going to be great for the VOD. Okay, so.
Yeah, we've got this awesome game.
All right, so I have a question. Have you ever made a tier list?
I don't even know what that is.
A tier list?
Perfect.
All right, this is what we play with our guests every week. Tier lists come from fighting games as a way to rank character choice at first, especially I think Street Fighter is really where they take off. However, recently on Twitch, on the internet at large, they've been a way of ranking everyday choices, which I as a folklorist, love them for that. Yeah, regular, everyday life, like what a folklorist loves. But you can use a tier list to rank any kind of list in any way. So I have a tier list ready for you that I'm gonna share with you on Discord in just a second, and I'll have you tell me where everything goes. I'll have you fill it out. First, I guess the origin of this tier list. I heard you say something in an interview once that really connected with me, because it also brought me back to driving around in my mom's car. When you said you didn't start, I heard you once say you didn't start off trying to be a blues man. You started off trying to be David Ruffin.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, man. That, listening to oldies radio with my mom, that spoke to me. So, cut over to activities here. We have made a Rank the Temptations members tier list.
Oh
So
my god.
the way the tier list goes from S to D. S is masterclass. D is barely
Oh
passing.
wait,
At
it
an
doesn't even.
what's that?
Oh, here we go. We're good. It's on. It loaded.
Yep,
It
yep, yep.
didn't load. Okay.
Oh, got it. Okay. So S is the highest. S is masterclass. D is the lowest. There's no F tier, and I figure like no one who's ever been in the Temptations can really be D tier, right? And I understand that there's been like 25 or so members of the Temptations throughout their history, including the Temptations and the Temptations Review, etc. But I've limited it down to about 9. I've limited it down to 9 members. Kind of the I tried to pick the most iconic ones. Are you able to make a Temptations member tier list with me right now?
Yes.
Cool.
Yes, I can.
I have the top of this tier list. So you just tell me where to place everyone, and I will place it for you. I have the start of this tier list. I have Otis. I mean,
Okay.
you got to start with. I think you got to start with Otis.
Well, yeah, since you started with Otis, the only thing I have to say is ain't nobody coming to see you,
Ain't nobody
Otis.
coming to see you, Otis. I stop whenever that's on VH1. I like stop whatever I'm doing and have to watch the whole 4 hours. It's so good.
So because of that line and what he did to David Ruffin, he has to go in the C.
Okay. Starting off with C tier. All right, so next up we've got Melvin Franklin,
Blue?
aka Blue. Blue is next.
Yeah. Melvin is David Ruffin's cousin. Melvin was the bass baritone.
Yeah.
We'll give him A.
All right. Smooth A. I don't want to bias you in any in any way here, but I will say my favorite Temptation is up next, and that's Eddie.
Eddie.
Chat already heard my falsetto earlier too. Chat heard my falsetto. They understand. Right. They understand.
No, I love Eddie. I love Keep On Trucking. I like his style. He is another Mississippian. I want to give him S, but we're going to put him on A.
Is it A above Blue or A behind Blue?
Above Blue.
Above Blue. Cool.
Yeah.
All right. Next we've got Paul.
Paul. You know what? I like Paul's voice a lot.
Yeah.
It was raspy. I don't want to make it sound like I am a Simon Cowell because I'm not an expert, but this is based on hearing. I think he's slightly limited, but I love him, so let's put him on B.
Right in the middle of B. Cool.
Yeah.
All right. Next, we finally got into David Ruffin.
That's masterclass all day.
Absolute masterclass right off the bat. Yeah. David Ruffin's incredible. I agree.
He is.
Okay, now we're kind of getting to some of the more iconic, like second generation ones. Up next, we got Dennis.
Right. So here's the thing: Dennis replaced David.
Of course.
So I'm biased.
Of course.
However, he did one of the most iconic Temptation songs.
Papa Was a Rolling Stone.
Correct.
Yes.
Not to mention, right, and not to mention the group he was in prior to the Temptations. So we're going to put him as A.
A. Okay. Now
behind Eddie, in front of Blue.
Okay. Great. Awesome.
We're natural at this.
Yeah, you're very decisive. I always up next is Richard. I always go to the scene where in the movie where Richard is like live dubbing Paul when he's too drunk to sing.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
But where do you go for Richard?
See, these guys who had the opportunity and then, ran from the opportunity. But then again, at the same token, he did play a very instrumental role. So let's put him at B after Paul.
B after Paul. Cool. And
just because of the role he played, not necessarily vocals.
Exactly. No, that's a good way of putting it. And next we've got Damon.
Right, he replaced Eddie.
Yeah,
we could put him at C.
Put him at C. Is he C under Otis or above Otis?
No, he's not above Otis.
Okay.
Otis is only there because of my bias.
At least you'll address it. At least you
Yeah.
address it. And I didn't think the list would be complete without this, because I didn't think the story of the Temptations is complete without this. But I included Al. I included Elbridge.
I'm happy you did, because
Thank
he's
you.
going right to D.
He's going right to D.
Yes. Yes.
And explain for the chat if they don't know the story behind him.
So, you know, besides the fact that he tried to map Paul in the mouth, and I thought that was disrespectful because, you know, it's rare that anyone gets asked for an encore. And I've been asked for an encore, and I have been booed off stage. So when someone tells you that, and it's the person paying you, come out and do an encore, you're supposed to do an encore. And he had a problem with that. Not to mention, he was always complaining, man, I need to go get a job. So you know, he didn't have the vision. And I can't even tell you if I even heard him in the harmony. I don't even know if this guy can actually sing.
Yeah. I read that David Ruffin's only on one track on the first album, but I can't tell. Like, you know, I can't tell which one it is. I don't know the difference. I don't know what Al sounds like on his own. Yeah.
At all. And you know, just on a side note, not that I'm just biased with David Ruffins because of his vocal ability, his style, and he's extremely relatable to me.
He's got the fur-lined tuxedo in that photo. Yeah.
Come on. But you know, the microphone they used that had the 4 mics on that one stand?
Yes.
He designed that.
Oh wow, I didn't think I knew that.
See, so he did a lot of things to push the group forward. And what gets lost in translation is he was hard to work with, it was this, and it was this. But they didn't talk about how they never gave him a proper contract because he wasn't an original Temptation. So his money was getting funny. And when he was approaching them on this is when the problem started with him and Barry.
Yeah.
So David's my guy.
David's S tier. You know what?
Yeah.
I can get down with this list as long as Eddie's leading A tier too. So I like that. I like that a lot. Okay, here we have it.
And you know, David Ruffin Jr. sings as well.
That's right. Oh, it was difficult to figure out where I wanted to cut the list off. All right, chat. Here is the official Lamont Jack Pearley 100% Folkwise Live Temptations tier list on a scale from David to Al. How much do you need? Money, fortune, or fame? Thank you so much for this tier list. It is now well, or it's only about 11. It's 11:15 on the East Coast, but
10:15.
It's a little past. It's a little past normally where the guests out is to go home for the night if you are ready to go. But I will say, chat, spam some ladders. There was a great interview. I had so much fun. Ladders in the chat, people. GG's in the chat, everyone. And do you have anything you want to plug right away while we're still talking?
Sure. Sign up for the newspaper. Listen. Go to WKYU fm.org and listen to the African American Folklorist. Go to NPR1. And we have no content on the African American Folklorist YouTube page as of yet because it was just constructed. But subscribe because the content is coming.
Content is coming. You can always like when this interview hits YouTube, you can always like host that on a playlist too. Yeah,
I sure will.
Okay. Well, GG's,
I appreciate
everyone.
you guys.
Oh, I thank you so much. It's what a great way to spend our first like official music episode. And
yeah, can I also say too, like, You're such a wonderful guest to listen to because the way that you answer questions is like you're telling us a story at the
Yeah.
same time you're answering it, and that's always a magical experience to like feel like totally enwrapped in a tale while you're learning stuff is like amazing. And it's not the way that everybody answers
Oh
questions. So
yeah.
that was a very special treat for us. I think that was awesome, and the chat went silent when you were talking,
Couple times
and then
the
like
chat, you could tell the chat,
then,
you could
like,
see
tell
the chat was
like,
listening. You could see
yeah.
the listening. Yeah.
It's so cool to watch that happen in our magical live stream chat, and then immediately they'd come back and be like, yeah, and they'd like ask a bunch of
So
questions.
many
So it
questions.
was so cool.
You might have the record
thank you so
for
much.
questions farmed from chat.
You
Oh my
might,
goodness.
yeah.
Yeah,
It's pretty cool.
yeah. They were very into it.
Yeah.
Well,
So thank
I
you very
enjoyed
much
it.
for being on here. Yeah.
Thank you.
Very welcome.
And I have to say this, pun intended,
Oh boy.
because I was a De La Soul fan.
Okay.
Well, I am. Daisy Age.
Oh my gosh.
Hey.
Hey. That's so true. Oh my gosh.
Yes.
Love it.
One last folklore pun. I'm sorry.
Okay, that's
Yeah.
fine. It was.
That's good. It's good. Dom
That was a play on
Dom
words.
has hard
That was a play on
Dom
words.
has
I'll
hard
allow it.
feelings
I'll
about
allow it. I'll allow it. Play on words.
Yeah, Dom has hard feelings about puns.
The
but
whole
I
word
like
Daisy
them,
was
so
incorporated.
I like it.
No, that was. I'll allow it. I'll allow it. Don't ban him or anything on my behalf.
All right. Yeah, do not.
Quilts have had a meaning on many levels. Making quilts helped me to get a sense of my own space, sense of finding my way, sense of really working my way out of the labyrinth.